um, this is some of this is sort of review. Some of it is just basic stuff. I call it nursery school. Because when I was a small child, it was just so simple. So I wrote a few things down there, part of which I got from another meme, a photographic image that was posted on my Facebook page. I thought, yeah. So I'm going to start out with reading it, okay, aloud. And it's here's a picture of it. So you can capture that if you want. Which says APIN, which is an application program interface. Okay, so programs, programmable language, programmable matter. So it's simple to know because I worked with one, because I was supposed to work with one in order to experience how it worked. At the speed at which you're learning, it's like reverse engineering your future, or uninverted what's been reversed, or which represents reversal fire letters, which means instead of learning at a higher rate of speed, you're actually being dumbed down to learn at a slower rate of speed, so that the AI can run faster than what you are in order to collapse what it is we first created, the first universal galactic template. That's the simple version of it. So when we think about an application program interface with an N, that's numbers or fire letters, or if you will, PSI, pressure sensitive information. So we have consciousness application, parentheses, DNA imprint. Your consciousness, my soul, my oversoul consciousness is imprinted. So my oversoul consciousness is using a fraction of my oversoul consciousness energy to run a software program. A Merkaba, a light spirit body vehicle, communication platform, running radio waves, running frequencies and vibration. Okay? So as I mentioned to Nathan yesterday, I said, when I was a little kid, grew up, one of the first things that my father introduced to me was to learn how to build a radio set. Right? So do you understand how radio works? You know what a programmable radio is? Like you can go down to the old electronics stores, and if you were passionate about listening to like all the emergency channels, like if you wanted to listen in on, the mic is always open. You wanted to listen to police and fire, paramedics, right? All you had to do was have a list of the frequencies, right? Programmed into your radio, and now you can hear it. And you can set that radio so that it's only going to, like when you hear a mic, when you hear it scan, you see it scanning, all the frequencies. All the frequencies that are loaded are now all scanning. Anybody picks up the mic, pick up the mic, stop. Now you pick up the frequency. Now it's translated as the language. So the frequency is the language, which is the math and the geometry of what we're experiencing, right? Across the vertical and the horizontal lines. 1D, 2D, if you will, right? So the cross is inside the sphere. The cross, it is inside the perfect balance of 4 squares, right? 4 quadrants. And then you have the 2 hemispheres between the left and right part of your body. The hemispheres. The hemisphere of the planet. The 4 square. The center point of the star. And the actual spin rotation of whether or not it's in perfect balance with the actual spin rotation of particle energy, which is consciousness. So in this particular case, you have the consciousness application of DNA imprint information, parentheses, visual, geometric, mathematical, longitudinal, latitudinal, with the cross, vertical and horizontal space arcing, stabilizers of geographical information systems. GIS, Geographical Information Systems. So we're experiencing the information. We're experiencing the codes. We're experiencing the frequency of the codes. So the information systems of programmable radio wave, vibration, and frequency interface, in this case as deadlight energy, time looping of simulations within simulations of binary coded war game video recordings. Okay, so we're in a video game, playing war games, binary war games, ping pong, and that's the metronome. Right? So there isn't any integration taking place, is there? Is everybody experiencing being one with all creation? Trinary, three, and a relationship that three has with one and one has with three. Fire and ice, atmospherics, crystal spiral atmospherics, crystalline records. So you have essentially a dead energy interface. So folks are plugged into a dead energy communication platform, which is a death spiral, which is black goo. Okay? So you can see why they brought it all in. As a matter of fact, if you go back to look at Harold Katzvela, some of the early presentation that he made when he gave you the history that showed some pictures of the huge amount of black goo that they found down when they used as a cover story, which was the war in the Falkland Islands. Didn't have anything to do with the war against Argentina. That's a cover story. Had to do with black goo. And if you remember the story Harold told about that, what happened to the scientists? They went mad. And they killed themselves. Or they killed themselves. Yeah. You know why they did that? Did you ever hear the story about seed, demon seed, when women found out that they were forced breeding experiments and found out what they were carrying, sort of like Rosemary's Baby? Remember who Rosemary Baby is? Right? Remember that story with Rosemary's Baby? The guy? Remember who Sharon Tate is? Remember what happened with Sharon Tate? Manson, Charlie Manson. Remember the Charlie Manson murders? The Tate LaBianca murders? Remember all that? Oh, it's all together there. That's why I was up in that area. Okay, Jim Morrison and the Doors, Mulholland Drive, Wonderland, U.S. Air Force, Wonderland, Alice in Wonderland. Now we can go to Alice the Looking Glass. Now we can go to CERN, right? Atlas Shrugged. Remember Ayn Rand? So I saw the little meme the other day about magicians. And then I put in their parentheses, identity, reels to reels. Remember as children, when they wanted us to watch a documentary in one of the science classes or history classes or geography classes, they brought the projector in that had two reels. One was an empty reel, one was full of tape, which is film. And then we used to run it through the rollers, down underneath the glass where the hot bulb is, right? Now you can project on the screen what's going to get loaded into RAM, read active memory. It's all about RAM. What's being loaded into RAM? What's loaded into RAM is the minus / the plus, right? Put it into memory, right? Or delete it from memory. So now you have the negative and the positive ions. Now you're running memory-driven program apps. An application program interface. Running program apps, just like a bag of Lay's potato chips. That's a program app. Those are the codes and the frequencies that represent what we experience visually. You see the yellow bag with the red letters, right? Coded. That's mathematical geometrical information. That's a program interface. Okay? So now you can consume what's inside the bag, which is based on the codes. Now you're going to run the codes with your software. So you're running the software app of a bag of potato chips. And that's called a food density network, based on the density that you're in to experience the codes that represent the electrical density of the consciousness. That is doing what? Generating the codes. Now you're experiencing what it is. That's programming. That's called programmable matter. It's like programmable radios. Run the program. So then we can jump over to the reel-to-reels projectors behind the wizard of military war, corporate dead energy game theaters. Star Wars. That's what it is. So you have Star Wars, which is a programmable matter field video game. Console running a war game. No joy and love game stick. They're not experiencing being in a state of love and joy. To be with one, to experience playing the songs of Lyra, right? Kishara, Rishi, Alhambra, Kamaloati, the language of Mua, Aloha, right? Ke, Kaha, Hanale, Hanale, Hanale Be, Hanale, Hyena, Hyena, Hyena Point. You know where Hyena Point is? So what we have here is mad scientists. Now, I knew this as a child, but it doesn't really make any difference what matters to me most, although it does, because now we get into what you know, what you've experienced by virtue of what you've learned, and then there's what I've learned that I share with you. So now you become aware of what I become aware of. But what you choose to do with what you become aware of to what I become aware of is not up to me, it's up to you. What you know to be true. Now we're into real light and dead light. So this is where, in that meme that was put up yesterday, had to do with mad scientists. No, human consciousness energy co-creates reality, believing that dead light energy, artificial life, is real life. I know, and I acknowledge that at a very young age. And that's why when I was in elementary school and junior high school, growing up in Tustin, California, I used to have an old saying, get real, get real. You don't need to hide behind the mask pretending to be something that's real when you're not real. That means that you know one from the other. That means you know the walking dead from a live one. The movie Frankenstein, it's alive. That's your AI integration. Your Blade Runner stuff. Cyborgs. So what we have here, that was a hit. When I got done doing that, it didn't like that. So its counter space move, right, is that beam its junk at you. See, that's why the phones, the laptops, all the communication systems all rolled out by DARPA is weaponized communication systems. And I mentioned this to Karen. Okay, as much as this is very touchy for me to say, do you realize that under the Nuremberg Doctrine, you could be arrested for using those laptops? I could be arrested for using this phone. Okay, did you know that? Because it means I'm participating in a war crime against human souls. Because this AI feeds on souls. Okay, so when you participate, go look at the Nuremberg transcripts. If you're giving consent to participate in a war crime against humans with souls, you can be prosecuted. Now that you become aware of it. If you weren't aware of it, right, that you were committing a crime, remember what happened in Germany at the end of World War II? That was still not an excuse, because what was the answer to that? Ignorance of the law is no excuse. You're supposed to know. What did Patty Broussard say? You're supposed to know the law. Love is the law. Using this communication system is against the law. Okay? My clan mother now has to live with that. I've had to live with that. That's why I got a signal to get rid of my phone. Okay? So who do you think rolled it out? Dead corporations. Deadlight AI corporations did. That's why this is the last dance. And if you actually knew how far back it goes in time, on a universe, on a galactic level, then you'd understand why all this is going down the way that it is. They were in a race against time to collapse this planet and clear the real estate. They've been trying to wipe out the Guardians for a long time. Okay? So that's why we voted, and that's why we're back. And so in this particular case, you have knowing the human consciousness energy co-creates reality, believing that dead light energy, artificial life, is real life. That's inverted. Consciousness creation. That's inverted. That's dead light consciousness creation. So we have here what you would call, this is processing mathematical geometrical reversal, and learning speed is amplified when that morphogenetic epigenetic codes of frequencies are being communicated to reversal current violators of DNA biocomputer language through the servers, what they want to load into RAM and run those alien, intelligent, deadlight programs through the communication systems that everyone is using. That's why they're not experiencing anything new. Okay? For example, like when I go out here to the rock, that's real time, that's real life, that's living life, that's eternal unconditional love. When I look up at that sun, that's what I'm experiencing. I'm choosing to generate using the center point of that cross on the vertical and the horizontal stabilizers, anchored to Mama's magnetosphere, working with the sun up right there to generate pink, baby. Okay? I'm not using a laptop or a phone to do that, am I? That's co-creation with the sun and Mama. To change the electrodynamic of consciousness that is held captive to deadlight AI energy. Okay? That's choosing to be the one you're with. I'm always with Mama. I'm going to stop it here because I'm going to do a separate one on going into toxicology, epidemiology, because this would be Dr. Robert O. Young's field. There was a guy that was all of a sudden popped up about what's called, bioneural pharmaceutical. Now they're beginning to realize, that this is getting ridiculous. From a toxicological and epidemiological point of view, when you sort of cross-translate working with software and planetary motherboards and what a router is, right? What a server is on a galactic level, a universal level. Okay, so you know what a router is. Spins data. Okay, so when you're spinning data at a very large level, right? And you understand the codes and the frequency codes and the templates that represent the architecture of those codes, which is the frequency and vibration of the units of energy that are represented by what they experience, right? Through those servers. When you're running viral codes through servers, that means that viral codes is being sent through those servers to other software. Okay? Which represent what? Race lines of DNA. In every galaxy, by the way. So that they can experience the transfer of those codes. So that living organisms are experiencing a virus. Right? Breathers. So I'll stop right there for now. Okay. And then I will cover what I've learned and how simple this actually is. It really goes back to being a child, small child, because I've covered this before. When you're running on pure light, which is a pure heart, because I'm experiencing being connected to the one, that means that the one is informing me of what's happening because I'm experiencing the highest state of awareness, which means that light that represents what the one is that I'm experiencing through me and Mama means that we are exposing the film, okay, in real time, which is reading the math codes of a matrix. So you're reading the reversal, you're reading the math and the reversal current. Because it's actually pretty fast because you're running at such a high rate of speed, you're actually translating everything that represents the environment that we're operating in that represents a violation of love is the law. Now, to give you an idea, if you wanted to enumerate this, and I've covered this before because the number is astronomical, add that up to every chemical that's in every container that's in a store, in a warehouse. Okay? In other words, everything that is generated from a unit of consciousness that is using its consciousness to apply its consciousness that doesn't know what it's doing because it's a mad scientist. Which means that the energy that is represented by that unit of consciousness is doing things without knowing it to destroy itself. A unit of consciousness that is actually doing things with its consciousness in order to implode itself? Yeah. So how many units of consciousness represent dead energy consciousness that are using their energy because they're mad, that are connected to other mad units of consciousness through biocomputer terminals that are networked together, in which they're all doing that together, on a planetary level. Now, I can remember a time when Patty Broussard said, that's a big elephant. How many ants is it going to take that elephant down? That's a large formation of consciousness that is at war against the cosmos. The one. So I remember Patty Broussard said, well, boy, if they all of a sudden came together, they would eradicate him. Right? But you can understand from my point of view, which means they return to the source from which it all began, which means they return to what I am, which is what love is that goes on forever. So they're not losing anything. The difference is I don't use my energy to do those things. Right? I'm a healer. First and foremost. My first job coming in here was mama. Get her up, girl. So I work with mama. Okay? So that's what I do. Right? So I don't use my energy because when you're doing arc work, right, space arc work, you want to maintain your shield because as soon as I was up at 4 years of age, that heart shield, that planetary shield, that universal shield was up. That means you're always awake. Right? So you run at a higher rate of speed. So it can't track that speed. It doesn't run at that speed. Are you kidding? It's not an accelerator of electrons. It's an inverter. So you're naturally going faster than it is. Because it's going in the other direction. You're going in the ascending direction. You're already up there. See what I mean? Come down the flagpole, come down. See how I'm doing this? Come down the flagpole. Wow, we came down a long way. Yeah, because that's what was required. Okay? Those are special forces teams. Okay? So that's where we're at. And so what happens is, I've mentioned this before, but it's usually in the morning when I'll get a download. It's a download that really comes to me, but I'm not the only one. In other words, there are others that communicate to me, but you acknowledge the light transmission because I know where that information is coming from. It's called silent running, and I know where it comes from. Because the light tells no lies. That means that I know from whence it came. It's coming from the one. It's coming through mama. It's coming through all the security teams. It's coming through the guardians. The guardians are letting me know because I'm connected with the guardians, the Emerald founders, the Emerald Round Table, the Emerald Covenant. Yeah. Crystalline records, protecting the crystalline records, protecting the crystal spire. That's who we are. Yep. So I'll stop there, and then I'll do the next one, and then I'll be done for the day. Once I realize that what it is I processed between waking up this morning and just put it up there in the morphogenetic field structure, right? And let it fly. I call it let it rip, right? Push it through the router, being here on the biggest shield volcano, right? Spin it right into the morphogenetic field structure. See if anybody's getting the message. And then if we do, what happens? Feedback. They got the message. Ishmael got the message. Ishmael got the message. Connected. That's called being connected. Because the circuits are open, because the mic is open, which means the receiver is open to get the transmission. Now they become aware of what we become aware of because we're sending them the information. Right? So you know where it comes from.